Welcome to the Survival Guide for Orthodontists, the podcast that makes you the authority in orthodontics in your community. Get ready for insights on how to compete on expertise and trust against mail order and retail orthodontics. It's not always about the lowest fees. And now, from the People in Practice team, your hosts, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein.
Welcome to the Survival Guide for Orthodontists. I'm Amy Epstein. I have an MBA in marketing and 20 years of marketing communications experience. I co-founded People in Practice with my dad just about 10 years ago.
And I'm Leon Klempner, a proud retired board-certified orthodontist, currently teaching at Harvard. And if you're a frequent listener to our webcast, you'll know that Amy and I are always talking about moving towards a digital age and a digital workflow in our specialty. So
on that note, today we're very excited to have Dr. Mehdi Peikar join us on the Survival Guide for Orthodontists. He is the founder of BRIUS Technologies. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Peikar. We're thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Amy and Leon, and I really appreciate the invite.
Well, we've been talking a lot about BRIUS Technologies recently, just with our clients who more and more are familiarizing themselves with the technology and introducing it to patients. Let me just introduce you and talk a little bit about your background, and then we'll ask you some questions about it because we're really keen to learn more. So, Dr. Pikaar, and do patients and partners, do they call you Dr. Mehdi? Is that how you're typically referred to? I've heard both.
Dr. Pikaar, but my first name is Mehdi. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dr. Peikar. So you're the founder of BRIUS Technologies, and I know that you have a very multifaceted and impressive background as a practicing orthodontist, graduating from the UCLA School of Dentistry, but you also hold a master's degree in quantum mechanics and condensed matter from the University of Illinois, and a PhD in biomechanics from Johns Hopkins. So that's a really impressive and very multifaceted background that you bring to the table.
Thank you. Yeah, I love physics, and I have been kind of a student my whole life. Actually, I graduated in 2019, so a very long period of my whole life I have been a student.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it seems like all of that background is becoming very fruitful for you as it relates to developing the technologies under BRIUS. So I know that BRIUS is not braces. I know that BRIUS is not aligners. We hear they're called independent movers from our research. For many of our listeners who may not yet be familiar with BRIUS, can you talk to us about what exactly it is?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. We had aligners for the last 20 years, and before that we had braces for more than 100 years. And basically these are the two modalities that we had to move the teeth. Right now we have this option which I call independent mover, and it's basically and fundamentally different from braces and aligners. And the reason for that is it has the anchorage base that connects to the teeth through flexible arms. And each arm has its special design and its special thickness that applies the right force to move the tooth from its initial to its final position with the most efficient way and on a straight line. And if you look at the force pattern that is applied to the teeth formant is very different from braces. Sometimes when doctors for the first time they see BRIUS as an independent mover, they might think this is another lingual braces system or it's a braces system. But the fact is that the workflow in the clinic is very different. We'll notice that it's very different from braces. Right now that we have BRIUS as an independent mover, this is also very different from aligners or braces. So kind of have to unlearn what we know about orthodontics right now to learn BRIUS as the independent mover.
You know, what I love about this is that, you know, as marketers, we're encouraging our clients to move the world because we see the per visit profitability as a key indicator of successive practices. So the fewer the visits, obviously, the better. And we know that there's a market out there. Consumers want less visits and they want less costs as well. But having a high profitability is key. So, you know, it seems like there aren't a lot of visits that you really have to bring the patient in. When I was, I'm going to talk way back in the day. Now we're talking in the 70s, okay? You guys weren't born yet. I did lingual, and I used to schedule 45 minutes for an arch wire change. 45 minutes, and my back and my neck would kill me. So this is revolutionary in that respect. So anyway, my question to you is, when I first came into the profession, I wanted to be an orthodontist and a rock star. Amy, you may not even know this, Amy, but I wanted to be a rock star.
I look forward to this story.
Okay, but number one, I can't sing, and number two, I really can't play the guitar. So I became an orthodontist and a marketer, okay? But you're an orthodontist with a PhD in physics. So, I take my hat off to you for that. And I can imagine that having your background in physics was instrumental in developing BRIUS. So I'm sure our listeners are curious in terms of how did this come about and, what led to the development of BRIUS?
Yeah, of course. So this is a great question because sometimes when I go to lectures and I talk about the BRIUS, always I get this question, how it started, who I am. So, I'm originally from Iran, and I did my education in dentistry and orthodontics in Iran. I did my residency in orthodontics in Iran too. But during my residency, I came up with this idea of BRIUS and independent movers. And then because I love physics, as you said, Leon, physics is a big part of it. And always I enjoyed physics. I enjoyed quantum mechanics and relativity. I decided to go to the US and start my PhD in physics. So I started my PhD in quantum mechanics and condensed matter at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And during my PhD, I could not stop thinking about the idea of BRIUS. Although I had that idea from Iran, and I had written a proposal about BRIUS back then, but it's really hard to manufacture or do something that is at the edge of technology in Iran. So when I came to the US and I was doing my PhD, I started thinking about it, and then I transferred to Johns Hopkins to complete my PhD, and I focused on biomechanics. And it was back then when I seriously started working on BRIUS. Because I didn't have a license to practice in the US, I decided to do a second round of residency. And then I got into UCLA residency program. And during the residency, which is, as you know, residency is already a full-time job, I was doing BRIUS too, and I was working on designing the BRIUS for the patients. And as you said, Leon, it's all about physics. BRIUS, independent movers, is all about physics. It's a combination of biomechanics and physics and digital orthodontics. The first patients, when I had to design them, it took me more than 200 hours to design the BRIUS for them, upper jaw and lower jaw. So it took me a long time. I had to do a lot of computational analysis. I had to do a lot of designing, and I had to change the design. But luckily, right now, it's much easier. When you approve the virtual treatment plan on our software, which we call BRIUS Planner, in a few minutes, the BRIUS is being designed, and right now it's very fast. Our lead time is about 3 days. After you approve the case, 3 days later, on average, it will be shipped to you. BRIUS and the digital bonding tray will be shipped to you. And if you look at BRIUS, if you hold it in your hand, it looks very simple, but there is a lot of complexity in it, although it looks very simple. I explained independent movers a little bit, but maybe I can talk about it a little bit more. It's made of knife tie, and each tooth has its specific arm. And I was doing some statistical analysis. If even we have 10 million patients, none of these two arms are going to be exactly the same. They might look very similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same. The design is going to be different. The thickness of the arm is going to be different. And this thickness and design is going to be determined based on how the tooth should move from its initial to its final position with the most efficient way. And the interesting thing is that we are considering different things for that. One of the things that during my residency in Iran, I was kind of surprised that why we are not considering, for example, age when we are doing traditional braces. We never say this power chain is for 12-year-old, or this power chain is for teenagers, and the other power chain is for, 7-year-old. We never say that. Or we don't consider ethnicities, different ethnicities, they have different force patterns. Or different genders, they have different force patterns that are the optimal force for them to move the teeth. We never say, for example, this arch wire is for Hispanics. We never say that. But right now we are in the era of digital orthodontics, and we can consider all of these things. Again, as you said, Amy mentioned that it's a completely different way of moving teeth, and this is the challenge when something is new, always new. There are questions and there's misunderstandings. There were more than 20 years ago when aligners came, everybody was thinking, okay, plastics will not move the teeth. But right now we have this new modality. This is completely different from braces, and we have some marketing challenge that people still think, oh, this is braces. Even sometimes when the new doctors, that they're not completely familiar, they don't have a deep knowledge of independent movers, sometimes they call it a wire. They say, okay, when are you going to ship the wire to us? Mm-hmm. But it's not a wire. If you look at it, it looks more like a tiara to me. That's the misunderstanding that we have to change it. Or sometimes they ask me, is it an 018 system or 022 system? That's another question, that the answer to that question is that the question is wrong. It's like, for example, you say this aligner is 018 or 022. It's none of those. It's aligner is completely different, and BRIUS is the same way. BRIUS is not 018 or 022. You just need those handles on the teeth, and those arms go, grab the handle, and move the tooth from its initial to its final position, independent of other teeth, without doing round tripping.
There's a really good visualization on the website, if BRIUS.com, that shows exactly how that works. I found that really informative, just to see very simply how the technology works in practice. I just want to ask, as there are misconceptions and misunderstandings and comparisons to traditional braces, I feel like that at some point goes away when BRIUS is very clearly aligned with its main benefit. And it seems to me that efficiency is that main benefit. Can you talk a little bit about how much efficiency can be gained using BRIUS over a traditional braces and wires?
Of course, of course. So, um, we can discuss this for like 2, 3 days. It's like somebody 20 something years ago talks about aligners. This efficiency comes from the fact that things are autonomous. After the doctor approves the case, all the biomechanics is going to be into one BRIUS. With traditional braces, we have to step up the arch wire. We start from a flexible arch wire and we step it up. We go to heavier and heavier arch wires because one tooth needs a flexible arch, the other one needs a more rigid arch. And then, always we have to start from flexible. But imagine at the very beginning, you have different arms and each arm can be flexible or rigid. And that saves a lot of time in combination with the fact that we are moving all the teeth simultaneously. Sometimes in traditional braces, Amy, we move just a group of teeth. For example, we have an extraction, let's say we retract the canines, and then we just move 2 teeth, and then we move the incisors. So we are moving the teeth in groups, and that's why the treatment time might be a little bit longer. But what I see in my patients with BRIUS is that because all the teeth are moving simultaneously and there is no round tripping, that will really help with that efficiency of tooth movement. And the other thing is that you don't need to do any adjustments. Leon talked about like financial aspects of that we don't have to see the patient, or we can remotely just check everything. So that is a huge advantage. But actually, I personally, because I give a lot of lectures, I see the patients every month to take photos. But our doctors who are using our BRIUS like more than 40%, 50% in their practice, they completely see that the profit per visit, and not only like the efficiency for the treatment, the profit per visit is dramatically increased. Or sometimes when I talk to the assistants, I say, you bond that bracket and you engage that arm. It's like an investment for the next visits. If you compare it to traditional braces, in traditional braces, next visit, like in 8 weeks or 6 weeks, you have to change the wire and you have to put the new wire. You have to remove the O-rings, put the wire, put the new O-rings, or like if it's a self-ligating bracket, you have to close the bracket. But right now, you just put the arm there, and then what I tell our doctors is that you let it cook. You just wait. And then, the teeth move from their initial to their final position. And all we need to do is observing. Although we as orthodontists definitely, sometimes we need some auxiliary movements like rubber bands, and this is another advantage for BRIUS. Amy, we talked about efficiency. With traditional braces, we cannot tell the patient to wear heavy rubber bands from day one, because we have to step up the arch wires and we make the arch wire heavy enough to tell the patient now wear rubber bands. For example, your class 2, usually when we get to that point, the patient is kind of not compliant anymore. The teeth are straight and the patient doesn't care about class 2 anymore. So with BRIUS, what we can do is that we can tell the patient to wear heavy rubber bands from day one. And we can put like buttons on the buccal surface, and we tell the patient to wear those rubber bands from day one. And that shortens the treatment time dramatically. While we are aligning the teeth, we are also fixing the bites. So we are kind of combining things together to make the treatment more efficient. So that's like the biomechanics aspects of it, and also we discussed the financial aspects of it and how that is efficient financially for the doctor, for the patient, and for basically everybody.
That's great. Are you collecting data on that? Do you have any numbers in terms of how much faster treatment could possibly be on average, even loosely?
Yeah, definitely. So we are working on that. We are doing a lot of researches. Actually, there are some different residency programs. They are working on that to show the treatment time. The research that I did like a while ago was just I was showing before and after cases to orthodontists. That was like 2 years ago maybe. And then I asked them with traditional braces how long it should take to go from before to after. And then they gave me numbers. And I compared it to what we did with BRIUS, and that was dramatically different. So, but this is a preliminary data. I don't want to claim anything, but just I can say just from a clinician perspective, when I'm in the clinic, I don't want to say the treatment is going to be shorter, because we need evidence-based research. Somebody who is independent should do some research that we can claim such a thing. But I see it in my at least the efficiency of treatment in my patients. And the other factor is that actually, Leon, we talked about misunderstandings. When we say BRIUS, they say, oh, lingual braces, this is for adults. This should be expensive, my neck is gonna be hurting, but the reality is that this is for teenagers. BRIUS is for teenagers, 75%, 80% of the market is teenagers. And when we reduce the number of visits, which should be definitely, we should do some research on this, and because these are just my observations, and we need more strong evidence for that with peer-reviewed research that will be published. When we reduce the number of visits, it's not just for the patient, because for a teenager, we are dealing with a mom usually. You don't want to be sexist, but usually moms help with the kids, and they decide about their treatment, and sometimes that. But we are saving time not only for the kid that doesn't have to skip classes. We are saving the time for the mom or the parent that they don't have to take hours off. And also, if we consider our front desk, that they don't have to schedule more visits. Our assistants, that they don't have to deal with the changing the wire, or what I noticed with aligners is that a lot of our time when we see the patient, we are talking to them about compliance. We are telling them that, Johnny, you really need to wear your aligners. If you put it on the shelves, it will not work. So we have to talk about these things. But with BRIUS, I feel like I have time to talk to the mom, to communicate to the mom. And that's what I noticed. I'm treating a kid, and then after a while, maybe because I can connect to the mom requests that wants to get BRIUS, an orthodontic treatment. So that's something that I have seen many times, and it's very interesting to me.
So Mehdi, part of the tradition of our webcast is we have one of our listeners call in and ask a question. So if it's okay with you, let's play the question, and we'll have you field the answer.
Of course, let's do that.
Hey, Dr. Klempner, Dr. Mehdi, it's great to be on the show. Thank you for this opportunity. This is Dr. Drew Chase, owner and founder of Arch Orthodontics in the Boston area, out onto Cape Cod. As a longtime user of BRIUS, I want to say thank you. I think the technology is incredible. And my question for you is, what can we look forward to in the next 6 months to a year as far as advances in the technology? Thanks so much.
Okay, that's a great question. I was a little bit surprised about this question, but that's a great question. Let me tell you about the future. So in the near future, we will have custom brackets. So far, we have been using normal brackets that we bought off the shelf, and they were the same for all the teeth. Amy, we talked about the fact that these brackets, they're not 018 or 022. It can be just a handle on the tooth that the arm goes and grabs it. They were the same on all the teeth, from the molar to the incisors, for upper arch to lower arch. But right now, we're going to have those brackets that are fully customized. They are going to be fully customized, the base of them, and that will help with the debond rates. The debond rates definitely will decrease, and also the use of BRIUS is going to be much easier. So that's the short term. And the answer that I have for the long term, we have the idea of AI, artificial intelligence. I was talking to one of the executives of the biggest orthodontic aligner company, and we were talking about the noise that we have in the data that we get for aligners. When even you have like 11 million patients, the noise that you have, that you don't know how many minutes or hours each patient was wearing the aligners. You don't know that patient was wearing the aligners 0 minutes a day or 22 hours a day. You don't know, and you don't know, based on that, you don't know how much force you were applying to the tooth. So your data becomes so noisy. But if you compare it with our system, BRIUS, which is an independent mover, there is no friction, and we know how much force we are applying to the system from the very beginning of the treatment to the end of the treatment. That data becomes so valuable. I would say maybe equivalent of 10 million with aligners, 10 million patients with aligners, maybe equivalent of it is like 30, 40, 50,000 patients with independent movers. That is the equivalent that we can extract the data for it. And the concept that I have, I call it force moment enhancement. And this is a concept that basically didn't exist. I had to make up names. I have to sometimes make up names like BRIUS, or like this is a force moment enhancement. So a force moment enhancement means that it looks at when the refinement is submitted, we look at how the teeth moved. And we look at the ethnicity of the patient. We look at the age of the patient. We look at the gender of the patient. We look at it was upper arch or lower arch. And we look at the length of the roots. Because we encourage our doctors to submit CBCT to us. So if they submit CBCT, we know how long the roots are, and based on that data, we know how to adjust the force and moment, which I call it force and moment enhancement. So the software learns very quickly how these force and moment should be adjusted for each patient. And this is the beauty that we have with independent movers, that even if we have a digital braces system, you cannot do that AI, because with traditional braces system, you have friction, and because of the friction, you don't know your slots. You don't know the slot is too big or too small, and because of that, you don't know your friction. If the slot is smaller, because of the tolerance in the manufacturing of braces, or when you put a power chain, you don't know the patient is drinking a lot of tea, and that power chain decays, the force decays very fast, or you don't know all those things. So you don't know how much force you are applying with traditional braces to the patient. Even if you have a frictionless system that is still braces, at the beginning of the treatment, because teeth are not moving, at the beginning of the treatment, you know how much force you're applying to each tooth. But after 2 weeks, teeth do not, because teeth move, and you don't know which tooth moves faster than the other. You don't know how much force you're applying to that system. In the braces system, that is frictionless. So system that you know how much force you're applying is frictionless systems that are independent movers, and that is the strongest way to extract the data and improve the force and moment for the future patients.
We look forward to following BRIUS. It sounds like there's a lot of interesting developments that will come down the line. In the meantime, it's a really interesting technology that our clients have been interested in. So we're happy to have these explanations from you. So thank you so much for being here today. We would like to give you the opportunity to mention how our listeners can reach you if they're interested in BRIUS technologies. What's the best way?
Of course, yeah. Again, I really appreciate the invite. I really enjoy your podcast, and it was a pleasure to be with you on this podcast and chat with you. And the best way to contact me, one way is to go to brius.com, and there are contact forms. You can request for data, and our supportive sales team will reach out to you. The other way is you can follow me on my Instagram. My Instagram is at Dr. Peikar, DrPeikar. Or on the Facebook, I have a page, and that is / Dr. Peikar. You can Facebook / Dr. Peikar, and you can, if you want to communicate with me and contact me, or you have any questions, feel free to contact me through my social media.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. We appreciate it. We will certainly have you back. You can subscribe or download other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts and videocasts. And if you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate it if you told a colleague about it. For more information about People in Practice, you can sign up for our free marketing newsletter on our website at pplpractice.com.
And if you'd like to reach me, shoot me an email at leon@pplpractice.com. The world is moving digitally. The orthodontic profession needs to do the same. You hear me speak about this all the time. It's never been a better time to be an orthodontist. We are in the golden age, but only if you take advantage of it. So until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on the Survival Guide for Orthodontists, where we help your practice grow within a massively disrupted industry. Subscribe to this podcast and connect with us on social media. Find us online at thesurvivalguidefororthodontists.com.